My sister had perfect grades and no career. My parents called me a failure for bad marks, but I built a sales empire, hired her, and exposed them in front of our whole community at the celebration they hosted to claim credit for my success. When I was a kid, summer break wasn't a break at all. While other kids ran through sprinklers or begged for slushies, I sat sweating in the attic with a stack of math workbooks, trying not to faint from the heat or the pressure. My name's Armin. I'm 27 years old, born and raised in Edison, New Jersey. My parents are Pakistani immigrants, tailors by trade and tyrants by ambition. They didn't want kids. They wanted proof. Proof that their sacrifice, leaving Karachi with nothing, was worth it. That proof came in the form of a GPA. Layla, my older sister, delivered exactly what they needed. Valedictorian. State debate champ. Early admission to Yale. She wasn't just their daughter, she was their success story and a salwork ace. And then there was me. I wasn't dumb. I just wasn't Layla. While she brought home straight A's, I dropped from A's to B's and, God forbid, a C in ninth grade chemistry. I still remember the day my father saw that C. He didn't yell. He didn't curse. He made me stand in front of the prayer hall at our local mosque after Jumu'ah and read out my report card to the elders. Then he told them I was being humbled. Afterward, they patted my shoulder like I was a sick animal. One of them gave me a $10 bill and said, "By better luck next time." When I got home, dinner was already cleared. My mom told me, "We don't feed failure." That wasn't a metaphor. I didn't eat for 2 days. They locked me in the attic every holiday break. Said I needed focus without distraction. There was no bed, no fan, no anything, just a rickety desk, some textbooks, and a bucket. I wasn't allowed down until I completed the practice tests they assigned me, all graded in red ink by my mother like she was running a private tutoring prison. By the time I was 15, I started fighting back. I'd draw cartoons in the margins of my tests, sarcastic little versions of my mom and dad, shouting about A's while their kid drowned in homework. I got caught when I slipped one into a practice SAT and forgot to tear it out. That's when they took the door off my room. Said privacy was a luxury, not a right. I started sneaking out, mostly at night, mostly just to breathe. Sometimes I'd walk to the 7-Eleven and sit under the neon sign until my legs stopped shaking. Sometimes I just wandered the streets, staring into restaurant windows, wondering what it would feel like to laugh at dinner instead of apologize for it. It all exploded the year I flunked algebra. Not a test, a whole semester. I'd gotten into the habit of skipping class and drawing comic strips in the back row. I told myself it was protest. Really, I just gave up. When the final report came home, my father didn't say a word. He handed me a trash bag and said, "You're not our son anymore." He meant it. I slept in the park that night, curled up behind the tennis courts. The sound of bouncing balls and laughter drifted from the other side of the fence. I remember thinking, so this is what freedom feels like. Hungry, cold, but free. The first night I was homeless, I climbed onto the rooftop of a half-finished library about a mile from my high school. It wasn't a plan. It just looked like nobody would check up there. I wrapped myself in my hoodie, stuffed my backpack under my head, and stared up at the stars. I didn't cry. I was too tired for that. By morning, I was covered in a thin film of dust and cement powder, but at least I hadn't been found. My stomach was growling loud enough to scare pigeons off the railing. I climbed down, brushed myself off, and headed into town. Menlo Park Mall was always busy on Saturdays. I figured if I looked confident enough, maybe I could land a job, even without experience, even without an address. I ducked into a dozen stores, handing out my sad little resume, a blank sheet of paper with my name, phone number, and a made-up Gmail address. Most places shrugged me off. "We'll call you," they said, like that wasn't code for never. Then I walked past a perfume kiosk tucked between the escalators. A woman in heels was arguing with the booth manager, waving a bottle in his face. I said I want something subtle, not something that smells like I got mugged in a flower shop. The manager was sweating, trying to placate her. I didn't think. I just stepped forward and said, "Ma'am, if I may?" She raised an eyebrow. I picked up one of the tester cards and spritzed a different scent onto it. "This is called Ocean Layer. It's light, clean, and has just enough jasmine to catch someone's attention without screaming for it." She sniffed it. Then again, "That's actually decent." I handed her the full bottle and smiled. It's the one I'd pick for my sister if she needed to impress someone without trying too hard. She blinked, then nodded. "Fine. Wrap it." The manager looked at me like I'd just performed a magic trick. After she left, he pulled me aside. "You got sales experience?" "Not really." "You want a job?" "Yes." He grunted. "Pays crap. $10 an hour. But there's a cot in the back if you need a place to crash." I nodded so fast I almost dislocated something. That cot became my everything. I'd crawl into it after 12-hour shifts reeking of rose water and sandalwood, but I slept like a king. Selling perfume wasn't glamorous, but it lit something in me. For the first time in my life, being talkative wasn't a weakness. Being clever meant something. One day a guy in a suit asked if his wife would like a certain bottle. I looked him dead in the eye and said, "If you want forgiveness, buy this one. If you want her to know you're still lying, buy the other." He laughed and bought both. School never taught me how to do that. But the mall did. Life did. And for once, I was finally winning. That perfume job changed my life. Not because I loved fragrances, but because it taught me what school never could. I could sell. Not just products, but feelings. Solutions. Escape. Within 6 months, I was the highest selling temp in the store. Customers remembered me. Some even came back just to talk. The manager offered me a raise and a permanent shift, but I turned it down. I'd saved up just enough to try something new. Next came shoes. Then headphones. Then a stall that sold fancy blenders with names like Biomix Ultra Pro. Didn't matter what it was. As long as it came with commission, I was in. I made deals out of thin air. I talked people into upsizing, bundling, impulse buying. I started reading marketing blogs at night, borrowing books from the library about consumer psychology. I didn't just want to sell, I wanted to understand. I'd spend hours watching people walk through the mall, tracking how they looked at things, how they hesitated, how they asked their partners for approval before spending. I noticed who responded to limited time offer, and who shut down the moment they heard a pitch. I was studying, just not the way my parents wanted. Most nights, I still slept in back rooms or borrowed couches. I showered at the gym, kept my uniform clean, and saved every dollar I could. By the time I was 20, I had $2,000 in the bank and an idea. Instagram was blowing up with lifestyle influencers, people who had big followings, but no clue how to turn likes into money. And on the other side, I saw small businesses with cool products but zero digital game. I figured, why not be the bridge? I printed 50 flyers at a FedEx store, scribbled my number on each one, and walked through flea markets, beauty expos, vape shops, anywhere people were hustling. Hey, I can help you double your online sales. I don't need payment up front, just a cut of what I bring in. Most laughed. Some rolled their eyes. But one woman selling handmade bracelets said, "Fine, show me what you got." I created a landing page for her using a free trial site, designed her captions, paired her with a local fitness micro-influencer I'd met at the gym. Within 2 weeks, she was shipping out more orders than she could package. She Venmo'd me $100 and told 2 friends. That was the start. I called my service Convex. No reason, just liked how it sounded. I ran it off a cheap laptop I bought secondhand and worked out of coffee shops until I could afford a co-working desk. At 21, I officially registered the LLC. At 22, I hired my first contractor, a college kid in Bangladesh who edited videos for $5 a pop. By 23, I had a team of freelancers across 3 continents, all managed through Slack and Notion. We weren't big, but we were fast, scrappy, cheap. I didn't go back to school. Didn't need to. Instead, I made my own curriculum. Copywriting workshops on YouTube. Growth hacking subreddits. Google Ads certification at 2 a.m. Every new contract felt like a boss level. And every time I beat it, I leveled up. By the time I turned 25, I was clearing 6 figures. Not bad for a dropout who once got locked in the attic for bringing home a B. Somewhere in those years, I stopped wondering if my parents were proud. I stopped needing to prove anything. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was building something. And for once, it belonged entirely to me. It started with a like. A random photo I posted on Instagram, me in a blazer, standing next to a banner at some startup networking event in Hoboken. I'd barely looked at the caption. Just another Thursday. And there it was. A tiny heart. My mother's username, still in lowercase, still with a profile picture from 2012. I stared at it for a long time, like it was a mistake. 2 days later, she commented on a reel I posted from a client shoot in Brooklyn. "So proud of you, Beta. Mashallah, you've become so strong." Strong. Like it was a compliment, not the side effect of being kicked out of my home at 17. I didn't respond. I let the silence sit, heavy and clean. Then came the message. A DM. "You look happy. I hope you are. We talk about you all the time." I read it twice. "We talk about you all the time." Like I was a story. A distant relative. A cautionary tale with a surprisingly upbeat ending. I showed it to Lena, my fiancée. She read it once, rolled her eyes, and handed the phone back. "She's rebranding," she said flatly. "What? Your mom. She's rewriting history. She'll say your father was the problem, that she always believed in you. Then she'll cry. Then she'll ask you for something." I wanted to argue, but she wasn't wrong. A few weeks later, my mother sent another message. Longer this time. She talked about how she regretted how strict things were when we were younger. She didn't mention the attic, or the starvation punishments, or the time she told the imam I was possessed by Western laziness. Instead, she blamed my father. "Your Abba had hard hands. I couldn't stop him. I didn't know how. But I prayed for you. Every day. I didn't know what to do with that. So I did nothing." But she kept messaging. Little things. Ramadan Mubarak. I saw your company post. That logo is so beautiful. Have you gained weight? You look strong. Like a man. Then, one day, she invited me to dinner. Just us, she said. Your father wants to make peace. He's changed. Time makes even stone soften. I stared at the message until the screen dimmed. I couldn't picture my father softening. I could barely picture him not shouting. I showed it to Lena. She raised an eyebrow. He's not going to apologize, she said. She just wants to be able to say she brought her son back. Publicly. You think it's about money? Or image? Or both? You're a success story now. And nothing plays better in our community than a dramatic reunion with a golden son. I didn't answer. That night, I lay awake, thinking about the attic, the bucket, the silence. And I wondered what I wanted more, revenge or closure. Maybe both. I went. Not because I believed she meant it. Not because I wanted to see him. I went because I needed to know if anything about that house had changed, or if I was still just walking into a place that had never been mine. When I pulled into the driveway, the porch light flickered once, like the house itself was reconsidering. My mother answered the door. Her smile was too wide, too ready. There's my son, she said, pulling me into a hug before I could say anything. She smelled like cardamom and familiarity, and for 1 second, my arms twitched like they might hug her back. But I didn't. Abba's not here? I asked, stepping inside. She waved a hand. He's resting. He's old now, Armin. Blood pressure. Knees. You know how it is. No, I don't, I said. The house looked the same. Same green carpet. Same dusty Quran shelf. Same clock ticking too loudly in the hallway, as if it had something to say. Layla was in the dining room, setting out plates of biryani and raita with robotic precision. She looked up when she saw me. We hadn't spoken in nearly 7 years. Hey, she said, her voice thin but real. Hey. We sat down. My mother launched into a performance, asking about my business, pretending to remember details I never told her, chuckling too hard at stories she'd never been part of. You always had charm, she said. Even as a boy. Remember that spelling bee in 2nd grade? You were so clever. No, I said. You told me I shamed the family by getting 3rd place. She blinked. Her smile twitched, but didn't drop. That was your Abu's voice, she said gently. You know how he was. I said nothing. I didn't want to fight. But I wasn't going to lie, either. Layla stayed quiet most of the meal. Just nodded occasionally, poked at her food, sipped from her glass like she was somewhere else entirely. After dessert, my mother excused herself to make chai. I think she just wanted us alone. Layla finally looked at me. You're doing well, she said. I shrugged. Trying. Better than trying. I've seen your stuff online. You. She nodded. I keep tabs. Quietly. I wasn't sure what to say to that. She cleared her throat. I'm not at Yale anymore. I blinked. What? I left 3 years ago. Couldn't handle the pressure. Dropped out. Moved back in. That hit me harder than I expected. I thought you were. I mean, you always had it together. I did. When it was scripted. When someone else was writing the lines. She paused. You remember how they used to say I was the golden child? I nodded. I haven't had a job in almost 2 years. Layla, why didn't you say something? She looked down at her hands, her fingers nervously twisting her ring. Because no one cared. They just kept pretending I was still perfect. And I didn't know how to stop playing along. We sat in silence. Then I said, come work for me. She looked up. What? I'm serious. I need someone to manage new client outreach. You know how to talk to people. You're smart. Way smarter than me. She laughed quietly. Not mockingly, softly, like someone who hadn't laughed honestly in a long time. You'd really want me on your team? I'd want my sister, I said. The real one. Layla nodded slowly. Okay. I don't know what I expected when I showed up at that house. But I didn't expect the only person I used to compete with to be just as lost. And just like that, the golden child was human again. And for the first time, we were on the same side. A week later, I got a letter. Not a text. Not a DM. An actual envelope, delivered to my office, addressed in my mother's careful Urdu-English hybrid script. Inside was a folded cardstock invitation that shimmered faintly in the light. It read, You are cordially invited to a rooftop banquet in honor of your success and perseverance. The words "our son," Armin, were printed in gold foil. The venue? The same mosque where my father once made me read out my failing grades like a confession. The date? 2 weeks from Saturday. At the bottom, in delicate cursive, your father wishes to make peace. I stared at the card for a long time. Then I walked into the break room where Lena was snacking on trail mix and holding a phone to her ear with her shoulder. I slid the invitation across the counter. She looked at it, then at me. What's this? My mother wants to throw me a party. Lena snorted, setting down her phone. For what? Escaping their psychological torture chamber? Apparently. She read it again, then sat back in her chair. Wait, rooftop banquet? I nodded. Her eyes narrowed. Isn't that where they used to make you serve tea during weddings while they pretended you were the help? Yup. She leaned forward. And now they want you to be the main event? Yup. She tapped the edge of the card. This isn't a reconciliation. This is marketing. I smirked. I figured. Lena crossed her arms. Let me guess. They invited the entire Desi WhatsApp anti-circuit. Probably already sent out the group chat blasts. She shook her head. They're going to parade you around like a poster child for tough love. Look how our strict methods worked. Look at our son now. Mashallah. I know. And your dad? She asked. You think he's really gonna apologize? I stared at the gold lettering. If he does, it won't be for me. It'll be for the cameras. So what are you going to do? I folded the invitation in half and slid it back into the envelope. I'm going. Lena arched an eyebrow. Seriously? I nodded. But I'm not bringing a speech. She tilted her head. Then what? I looked her straight in the eye. I'm bringing the truth. She gave a slow smile, equal parts proud and worried. So, not a celebration. No, I said, rising from my chair. A reckoning. I showed up 40 minutes late, wearing joggers and a black hoodie with a small tear near the collarbone. No gel in my hair. No watch on my wrist. Just me, scrubbed of polish, stripped of presentation. The rooftop had been transformed. String lights crisscrossed overhead like wedding chandeliers. White tablecloths. Gold-rimmed plates. Rows of folding chairs neatly aligned in front of a low stage. There was a banner hanging against the back wall, flanked by plastic floral arches, celebrating the journey of Arman Khan from struggle to success. I stood at the entrance, taking it all in. My mother was the first to see me. Her face brightened like she'd just won a raffle. Beta, you're here, she called, rushing over in heels too high for her ankles. A few guests turned to look, then did a double take. I didn't exactly fit the curated aesthetic. She pulled me into a side hug and hissed into my ear. Why are you dressed like this? Because I don't do costumes anymore, I said calmly. She stepped back, smoothing the side of my hoodie like she could turn it into a blazer with enough pressure. Everyone is watching. I know. We made our way to the center. The spotlight followed me like a curious child. I passed distant cousins I hadn't seen since puberty and uncles who used to shake their heads when my name came up in mosque prayer circles. Subhanallah, someone whispered behind me. He turned out handsome, no? My mother took the mic before I could sit down. Ladies and gentlemen, she began, her voice syrupy. I want to welcome you all to this special night. This is not just a party, it is a homecoming. There was light applause. She beamed. My son, Arman, has achieved so much. His business, his influence, his strength, it all comes from the values instilled in him by this community, by this family. I blinked. Did she just credit them? She gestured to me. He is the product of discipline, of tradition, of love that pushes. And tonight, we honor the journey. We honor the boy who became a man. More applause. Louder this time. People clapped like they were watching the third act of a drama they helped write. My mother handed off the mic to an uncle I barely recognized, probably chosen for his eloquence and beard. He offered a poem. Something about rising from ashes. About perseverance and duty. And then I heard it. A voice, sharp and direct, slicing through the polite murmur. Didn't you kick him out of the house? The room fell silent. All heads turned toward the source, a fiery aunt from my father's side. She stood near the back, holding a plate of biryani and glaring straight at my mother. You told people he was dead to you. The tension in the room crackled. Someone coughed. A fork clinked on a plate. My mother's smile flickered. We had a difficult season. But you starved him, the aunt continued. Locked him in the attic. Don't stand here acting like you raised him. The spell broke. The clapping stopped. The pride in people's eyes shifted into confusion. Doubt. Memory. My mother stammered, still holding the mic. Please, this isn't the time. No, I said, stepping forward. This is exactly the time. I didn't wait to be invited on stage. I just walked up and took the mic from my mother's hand. She looked at me like I'd slapped her in front of dinner guests. I didn't look back. I turned to the crowd. Their eyes were glued to me now, curious, cautious. Some still smiling politely, like maybe this was all scripted. I tapped the mic once. The feedback whined softly, then stilled. Hi, I said. I'm Arman. You've heard a lot about me tonight. About how I succeeded because of this family. This community. How I was shaped by discipline, tradition, and love that pushes. I let that sit. No one moved. Here's what you haven't heard, I continued. When I was 9 years old, I brought home A B+ in math. My father made me skip dinner for 3 days. Said it was to build character. Someone in the back shifted uncomfortably. I heard silverware drop. When I was 11, I was locked in the attic for the entire Eid break. My mother brought me food once a day. Cold lentils. No light. No fan. Just me, a workbook, and a bucket in the corner to piss in. A few gasps. A muffled, astaghfirullah. Every slip in my grades wasn't met with concern. It was met with shame. At school, I was the weird, quiet kid. At home, I was a failed project. I looked directly at my mother. She wasn't smiling now. You didn't raise me, I said evenly. You raised a scoreboard. And when I stopped performing, you tossed me out. I turned to the crowd again. They told people I ran away, that I was rebellious, that I needed tough love. But the truth is, when I failed algebra, my father gave me a trash bag and told me I was no longer his son. Silence. Thick and heavy. You could have heard a prayer rug fall. I slept on rooftops, ate out of vending machines, hustled shoes and cologne to stay alive. And I made it, not because of anything they taught me, but because I finally got far enough away to hear my own voice. My mother stepped forward, hands trembling. Beta, please, this isn't. I held up a hand. She froze. You don't get to rewrite history just because it's inconvenient now, I said. You don't get to claim the finished product when you hated the process. You don't get to take credit for surviving me. Murmurs rippled through the room. Heads turned. Old aunties whispering into each other's ears. And then, beside me, Layla stood up. She didn't say anything at first, just walked slowly to the stage and stood next to me. Her eyes were red. My brother is telling the truth, she said, her voice shaky but clear. I saw it. I lived in the same house. I played perfect so I wouldn't be punished too. But he took all of it. She turned to my mother. You broke him. And now you want to wear him like jewelry. A full-blown silence swept the room now. No one clapped. No one smiled. They just stared, like they'd suddenly realized the story they were sold didn't match the packaging. I stepped closer to the mic one last time. I don't have a relationship with my parents, I said. I have a relationship with my past. And that past taught me how to survive without love. I looked out at all their stunned faces. And tonight, I'm finally free. I dropped the mic, not dramatically, just enough to let it clatter. Then I walked off stage. No one stopped me. Layla found me in the parking lot 20 minutes later. She was still in her heels, arms crossed tightly over her chest. Her makeup had smudged under her eyes, and she looked 10 years older than when I walked into that rooftop banquet. I didn't say anything, just leaned against the hood of my car, staring at the faint reflections of string lights in the windshield. She came and stood next to me, quiet for a long time. Then, finally, thank you. I looked at her. For what? For saying what I never could. For breaking the performance. I let out a slow breath. You didn't deserve any of that either. She nodded. But I pretended it didn't happen. I watched it happen and played the good daughter anyway, because being perfect felt safer than being real. I know, I said. It's how they trained us. Layla looked over at me, the same sister who once aced calculus while I was hiding test papers in my backpack. The same girl who smiled at dinner tables while I shrank inside. I meant what I said in there, I told her. There's a job waiting for you. Full-time. Remote. Flexible. You won't need to perform, just participate. Her voice cracked a little. You really want me on your team? I want you out of that house, I said. I want you to start over. For real. She didn't answer, but I saw her shoulders drop. Like she'd been holding her breath for a decade and finally let it go. After she left, I sat in the driver's seat for a long time, the engine off, the night pressing in around me. My phone buzzed. A text from my mother. Please. Let's fix this. Families fight. But we are still your family. Blocked. Then another. My father. You humiliated us. You'll regret it. Blocked. I deleted the group chat with all the extended relatives before the apologies and excuses could start piling in. But something else happened. Something I didn't expect. Over the next few days, messages came in from random numbers, contacts I didn't recognize. A woman I barely remembered from the mosque. An uncle from my father's side who never said much. Even one of the aunties who used to glare at me during Quran class. They all said the same thing in their own way. We always knew something wasn't right. I'm sorry I never said anything. Thank you for telling the truth. I didn't respond to most of them, but I read every word. The validation didn't fix anything. It didn't undo the attic or the hunger or the fear, but it reminded me I wasn't crazy. I had survived something, and I had survived someone. That night, I pulled up an old photo I'd buried in a folder years ago, me at 13, sitting on a staircase, head down, oversized sweatshirt hiding a bruised ego. I stared at it for a long time. Then I whispered to that boy, you made it. Not because I became successful, but because I didn't disappear. I didn't become them. And that was enough.